All right, I'll bring some over. All right, don't forget to tip your bartenders. We're bringing this home. The last talk of the day, but not the least, we're going to learn how to kickstart an application security program.
So thank you to B-Sides Knoxville. Thank you for everyone that's stuck around for the last talk, the 10 of you. Really appreciate it. I will explain why that song was my walk-up song. I'm a big baseball fan, so having a walk-up song is something I've always dreamed about. It actually died when I was like 10 because I stopped playing Little League, but I was very happy to find out that they had a walk-up song here because it was a dream come true. So. Yep, let's talk about how to kickstart an application security program. My name is Timothy DeBlock, and we'll just get right into it. We need an AppSec program. Those were the words that were uttered to me by management that started my path down application security. And this is probably the most important point about building an application security program that I want to make, because I don't really talk about it a whole lot through the rest of this presentation, but you need leadership and management support to start an application security program. If you don't have that, you're kind of dead in the water. It's going to make it very difficult to get anything started. For my role, it was actually a collaboration between the development team and the security team. So when I came in to work on application security, I had that support. And even them coming to me and telling me we need an AppSec program, we're going to walk through two different journeys, but this is my first journey. But before we get to that, let's talk about why this talk is important. I don't have a programming background. I've come from the operations and infrastructure side of IT, yet I had a lot of experience building out programs within security. So that experience and that reliability and track record is what management came to me with the challenge of doing that. I didn't have an application security background either, so I was starting from zero. So this talk is meant to give guidance and give people a starting point who might be in a similar situation where you don't have a lot of experience, you don't know where to start, or if you're already in this kind of scenario. And I've talked to a couple people who are having to build AppSec programs that don't have a ton of experience, but you got to do the job. I've also talked to consultants who have found that they want to interact better with development teams, and they're actually finding some interesting takeaways from this talk. And if you're in that field, I would love to talk to you to kind of see some of your challenges and what you kind of get from this talk. So here's my roadmap. This is how I build out an application security program. The first one is understand the environment. Then I'll implement security assessments and processes. And then I'll do training. And those are the first three, because this is just kickstarting a program. So this is just getting something off the ground. The other two are kind of obvious too. Get feedback and review, and look for continued improvement opportunities. We won't really talk about that a whole lot here, but we'll focus on the first three. So we're going to talk about my first journey, which is where they came to me and said, we need an AppSec program. And this is in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm on a security team of about 3 people. We've got a development team of about 10 to 20 people. So it's not massive, but it's a good size. The advantage I have is that I know the environment. I'd been there for a year and a half. The disadvantage I had is that I'm wearing multiple hats. I have to maintain 15 different systems, anything from DLP to email, antivirus, anything that you could think of, incident response, patch management, things like that. So I had to be very practical with my program, because it wasn't going to be my sole focus. The other thing worth noting is that this was in a waterfall methodology, which I feel is a little bit easier to get security in there, because it waterfalls like just steps. It's a process that takes anywhere from weeks to several months, typically. So I needed a starting point. So where do I start? Well, I start with research. And for my, for the first prize, I've got posters and some extra badges. We'll give away an extra badge. So who can name everyone's favorite IT tool? Raise your hand if you got it. No. This would be tied in with research. Yes, sir. No. Google. That's it. Yep. It's everybody's favorite IT tool is Google. Come on. And yes, you can come up and grab your badge. I literally put in how to build an AppSec program. Again, I'm starting from zero. I have no idea what I'm doing. But as you'll notice there's your badge.
Wait, he got a badge?
Yeah. He said Google. Oh, okay. All right. And I seem to have broken my clicker. This clicker's probably not working that great anyways. So we'll just ditch it. So as you'll see there, the top 3 results are from an organization called the Open Web Application Security Project. It's a big-ass knowledge base, nonprofit, open source, free organization that allows you, that gives you a lot of knowledge and information about application security. It's folks that both developer and application security professionals. This is where I started. They have several projects that have frameworks and tools. And my first tool that I found and started implementing is a dynamic analyzer called Zap. Burp is the alternative. But Zap Proxy is free, so that's where I started. What we decided to do was stand up like a minimum 5-day security assessment time period. So we had typically 2 days of testing and 3 days or more of remediation within the process. And for anyone that doesn't know what dynamic analyzers, or as a couple people have corrected me, proxies do, is that they capture all your traffic between your computer and the application. And this allows you to map everything. And the methodology is you go through the application, you click on absolutely everything within the application, and then from there you're able to run different tools. The first tool will be a spider, so it'll go and look for some of the links you may have missed or look for other areas within the application. There is a forced browse, which will look for hidden directories. They have an Ajax spider if you have Ajax content. And then the fun part is when you get to run active scan, and that's where you get to have it run through a bunch of different vulnerabilities as it attacks the application. So yeah, we had a 5-day minimum testing period there. The alternative here is Burp. It's $300. There is a free version, but it's throttled, so you could still use a free version. $300 is not really a lot to spend on a great security tool. And it is actually the preferred security tool of like most application security professionals I've talked to. I've asked them why, and I usually get like a UI thing, like it's less buggy, they like the layout better, so I haven't really heard a good technical reason why Zap isn't, it is a lesser thing than Burp. So to me it sounds just more like preference. So that's the first tool. Another tool that is possible is a static analyzer. And a static analyzer will test code in its rawest form. So it's going to, you just pretty much zip up the code and upload it to the static analyzer, and it will go through and look for issues within the code. Now where there's an issue is that there's a lot of false positives that you're going to have to go to because it doesn't have any context. Unlike a dynamic analyzer that actually has the live application that you can actually see the vulnerability, you have to go confirm a lot of more different findings within the static analyzer. Open source focuses on one language usually. A commercial option will do multiple languages. There's, again, an OWASP linked at the bottom there for you to go find more information. I've actually found Wikipedia has a pretty good list of static analyzers to use. In my experience, what I'll do is I'll do a static analyzer of the code, and then when I'm going through my dynamic analysis, if I don't understand the code, then it's like, well, can I exploit it? Because it says this is pointing to here. You can usually figure out where the code is actually at. So that would be one way to help with testing for vulnerabilities within a static analyzer. One of the great things about static analyzers too is they're pretty good for automation and building inside your SDLC as code is being developed and pushed up through the development process. You can test code there. There, you're going to have to do a lot of tuning because there are a lot of false positives. So vulnerability tracking, this is where I kind of had my first misstep or first lesson learned in building out an AppSec program. So we were testing a legacy system. We found a pretty big vulnerability in it. It's internal, so we're not like pulling our hair out. But we asked the developer, okay, when can you get this fixed? And they gave us a date. A month after that date, I came back because I was trying to track all these vulnerabilities via email or a spreadsheet, and they told me that it hadn't been done. So I quickly realized I needed something to help me track these vulnerabilities that I'm starting to find. Ideally, you want to look for internal options. So security findings are just bugs. So they should be worked and addressed just like any other bug that would be submitted to the development team. And these are just a bunch of different options that they could be using. If that's not available, there are some security-focused vulnerability tracking tools. I started with Dratus. I actually did not have a lot of success. Dratus ended up being very difficult for me to set up. We wanted to set it up in our own server. It is typically in frameworks like Samurai Web Testing Framework, Samurai Web Testing, I haven't had any beer, Testing Framework, or Samurai WTF. Documentation wasn't quite there for me. Maybe it's better. I have talked to people who have had a lot of success with Dratus, so absolutely something to check out. From there, I moved on to ThreadFix, where we actually found a free tool that we were able to use. Now, I've recently heard that that tool is no longer supported, the community version, but it still got done what we needed to get done. We were able to get it installed as a server that anyone could go to. It imports XML reports, and then you can kind of track a lot of things from there, metrics, things like that. It does a lot of the same things as another tool I recently found, which is the OWASP Defect Dojo. And this is free. It's good for importing. You can import various different reports from various different tools. So if you're pulling in from multiple sources, this would be a good way to kind of bring them all together. It has a feature that will dedupe all those findings into one finding. And it integrates with Jira. So if you need to automatically create tickets, or if you need to create tickets after you're done going through them, it has that support. It's got a one-line installation. It's really easy. I started using this for myself because I did a big vulnerability assessment on our application, and I was starting to use a spreadsheet, and I said, what am I doing? I just spun up a VM Ubuntu, a VM with Ubuntu, and installed Defect Dojo, and it's been really great. So now I'm able to pull in multiple reports. I actually added a couple security findings outside of tools that I was using, and that's going to allow me to generate just one report from all those different things. And I mostly used it to like confirm stuff because there were still some false positives I needed to go through. There is a demo available on their site, just a link you can click on. They'll give you login information. You can go poke around in it if you're interested. So let's talk a little bit about how to handle vulnerabilities, because this is very key when you're working with developers. So you're going through finding vulnerabilities and generating a report for the dev team. Before you take them that report, you need to confirm your findings. Do not waste the devs' times with false positives. That's an easy way to get them to not like you, and you can hand them 9 actual vulnerabilities, you have 1 false positive, and you have just lost them. They will deprioritize those other 9 just as well. So we want to work with the developers to find a solution. And if you're like me, who doesn't have a strong programming background, it's more difficult. But they are very much open to questions. And I've found a lot of times they usually know what the fix is. I had one case where we found some SQL injection. And so the developer wanted to see it, and I showed it to her and showed her the attack code. And she went, gosh, hackers are so smart. So there's an appreciation there, and once I showed her the attack code, she figured out what was going on and what needed to be fixed. So, and that's a case of, if nothing else, if you don't have a strong programming background, at least have a really strong application security base. And that's where I spend a lot of my time focusing. Once you start using Zap, you will start picking up on things, because the reports will give you a lot of information, references, to go out and try to figure this stuff out. So let's talk about training. So an interesting thing happened when I started implementing OWASP's app and some other tools into the process. They wanted to start learning it. They said, show me how to use the tool. So this is a waterfall methodology. So I was finding vulnerabilities, and they started getting interested in it. And so we started having one-on-one and group sessions. And I was probably a little bit meaner than I needed to be with it, but on Zap, there's once you install, it's like a getting started page, and it's just a field that you drop in a URL and hit attack. And it gives you some vulnerabilities, but that is just very, that's a very shallow scan of the application. I didn't tell them that they needed to actually go through and click everything, so they came back and they said they thought they were good to go. I went and tested the application and found other stuff. That was a good way to teach them to how to actually move forward with it and get more interest within the tool. So we started having this training. We had an interesting security issue pop up where a phishing story came in. So we were reported that users were getting registered on our portal, and an email was being a phishing email was being sent after they registered. So we got together, had a plan of action. I was going to go research the phishing email. They were going to go generate a new user and then see if they actually got a phishing email. So we all break. I did my research. I had planned to also go back through with Zap and register a user to see if there was maybe some other vulnerability. That's typically how I go and touch some of our older stuff, is if something pops up that puts us in that code that we could address at that time. And so we get back together. I have, the phishing email was seen in other states, so it was very low chance that it was, specific to us. And they came back and said, yeah, that there was no email generated after we had a registered user. And they then handed me the Zap report. This was my response. Yes, that's absolutely what we want. We want them to, be using this tool, and they went ahead and did something that I was planning on going to do. So this is what brought on my epiphany, which is we want to improve the developer's mindset. Especially if they're interested in security, we want to get them involved with the tools that we're using. There's this concept of moving as far left of the software development lifecycle, and so you have your assessment. You want to start getting into code review. You want to get into QA. You want to get into design meetings. The furthest point left is the developer's mindset. So if we can get them thinking about security as they're coding, we're one up on the game. And this will be a long process, but this highlights why I'm a big proponent of training and why it's one of the phases in my program. We talk about this talent shortage all the time. Security has a talent shortage. Application security, it seems to be even worse than security as far as talent shortage and finding people that can get in the development life cycle to improve security. Let's leverage the developers. As I mentioned, they're already, they most of the time they knew what the fix was. They know what they needed to do. And how can they not with the constant news of breaches and vulnerabilities coming out in applications? Cloud bleed. I was asked what they should do about cloud bleed. So they're hearing about this stuff on a regular basis. So that was my first journey. And I'm going to take a drink. My next journey was a little bit different. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, which is a big reason why I'm here. It's a lot closer than Columbia, South Carolina. Well, about an hour closer, still. But I was hired to sit with the development team. So application security is going to be my sole role. We have a security team of about 10 to 20 people, a development team of about 50 plus people. So it's a big step up in environments. My role is to sit with the devs. It's also an agile methodology. So I have to really get security embedded in the development life cycle. Some people in security might think it is a problem. Absolutely. So my first step is to understand the environment. For me, it usually takes me about 3 months to start getting the gist of an organization, of an environment. 6 months, I start feeling comfortable, and in about 1 to 2 years, I start feeling really confident within an environment. So it does take a lot of time. And these aren't really like steps, these are more like guidelines, phases, whatever you want to call them. They can kind of blend together. I was dealing with issues within the first 2 to 3 months of being on site. So my first step, though, is to build relationships. This is a picture of Johnny Christmas at B-Sides Nashville 2015 about meeting people at conferences. A lot of those same techniques can be used when you're building relationships with the development team. And we do that because we want to get to know them as a person. Another resource that's really good for that is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That's a very good resource for building relationships with the development team. Goodness, is that me? Adrian. He's just making sure you're all awake. So for those wondering why I Touch Myself as my walk-up song, I couldn't decide. So Shake It Off by Taylor Swift is actually something I used to blast at the security in the office of my last job, and in Threads and anywhere I could. Anywhere I could. Center field, I got a lot of baseball fans that I interact with, so that's where that's from. I Touch Myself with a developer recommendation. When I heard I had a walk-up song, I was trying to get ideas, and I had about 20 ideas, and several of them came from the developer team. And I don't have a lot of devs follow me on Twitter, so this should show you that we're a lot alike. I've found that there are a lot of introverts. I think a lot can be said about the security community. There's, we like Star Wars, we nerd out on games, we like to drink, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the reasons why I focused on building better relationships with people is that I want to show them that security isn't intimidating, because I got a lot of fish eyes when I first got there. We want to show them that we can have fun, that it's not, there's not a whole lot of difference with us, and we want to get to know them because it's going to make it a lot easier to have harder conversations within security, especially when we're going to other departments. Devs included, we're going to have a lot of hard conversations with them about something that came up. I have these pretty regularly. Even though I've been there a year and they've gotten to know me pretty well, even when I walk up to someone's desk, there's always that little tightening up of uh-oh, what's he about to say? And it's like, no, I just want to ask you to lunch. You want to go to lunch or something? So, I mean, it still happens, but we really want to kind of show the human side of us to kind of make them, respond a lot better, especially when we have these hard conversations. If you're looking for a group of people within the development team to start building a relationship with, I would recommend Scrum Masters, business analysts, product owners, anyone that helps move tickets throughout the development lifecycle, because security is going to have to be in all the same areas. So those things align right there. In fact, my first meeting was with the Scrum Masters to, one, understand their process, and for them to kind of understand where I was coming from. My next thing is I attend meetings. I attend as many meetings as I possibly can, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever I can get into. You might have to go bug them to, hey, can I get an invite to this meeting? Because they might forget you, or they might not want you there. But, and my objective in there is to just observe. I don't speak up a whole lot. I try not to. I want to understand their goals and challenges, their frustrations, so that I can be a little bit more tactful with them when I want to get something in place, or again, have to have a hard conversation with them. I'm also in there to gauge security acumen. I want to understand what they know about security and kind of start getting a feel for what each developer knows, because some of them are going to have different levels of security knowledge and security acceptance, if you will. I've heard them talk about a decision start going down the wrong path, And at that point, I could have spoke up and said something, but I was like, let's see where they go with this. I want to see if they self-correct. And a lot of the times, they did self-correct. They know I'm sitting in there. So I don't really have to say a whole lot for them to actually have security of security at the forefront of their mind. That's not to say that if there is an actual issue to speak, that you don't speak up, but try to do it in the form of a question. What's the problem we're trying to solve? What have you thought about this? Why are you doing it this way? Things like that will help them towards the problem. One issue we had was we had the developers using an outside teleconference solution that was like free, no password protection. We had an internal option that was pretty easy to set up and get going. I asked them why they weren't using that, and it was a matter of they just thought it sucked. And I was like, all right, well, let me go try this. So I went and tried it myself, showed them the setup, asked them if they tried for a few times. They tried it a few times, and they moved away from the other one. Simple things like that. People have a reason for doing what they're doing, and so it's better to try and understand that first before you start saying, no, you can't do this. They respond a lot better to that, too. The other thing is to inventory all the things. This isn't unlike asset management. This is a lot like knowing computer and networking equipment within your environment. You are going to be looked to as a resource to secure if all this stuff is in your environment. This is like 1/5 of a bigger infographic that I pulled a lot of these different logos from. So there's a lot of technology out there. Docker is the new hotness. Do you know how to secure Docker? Do you know what you need to be doing about that? Having an understanding of what's in your environment is good for securing it, but also knowing when there's an issue. So I've got some posters up here, and if someone can point to one of these technologies that has had an issue in the last year, I'll give you a poster. Anyone? Huh? Dying? Yeah. Poster. Anyone else want to take a gander at that list and see if there's... Just let you grab. It could be, yeah. Sorry, it has one. Anyone else? Did you have one? Okay. Well. All right. Well, so and what I do with these is I take I do like an assessment. So I have a list of questions that I ask of these things, like how many developers are using it, is it maintained, is it updated, basic hygiene things about the technology, and try to find any kind of resources about securing this technology. And this will take a lot of time. If you're looking for a tool, OWASP Track is a pretty good tool for being able to pull in. You have to manually put in everything, but then there's an OWASP check that will go out and look for the vulnerabilities within that technology. So the next phase is to establish your processes, your assessment and processes. I start at all new applications and features. And the reason for that is because I don't want to play catch up. If I start at like legacy stuff and stuff that they're not touching or isn't presence of mind, it's going to take a lot of time for me to get caught up. So you want to start at a point where it's like, okay, from here on, anything going out the door needs to have some kind of assessment done on it. Within an agile methodology, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I can't take 5 days to do that, so I'm trying to automate as much as possible. The thing about Agile, though, is that they are doing it in smaller pieces, so you should be able to do an assessment pretty quick on a smaller piece. Or maybe you just define it as anything that touches some sort of functionality that you're concerned with, like a field or something. OWASP Pipeline is a framework that will walk through several of the tools and kind of some of the pipelines, if you will, of an AppSec pipeline within like an agile development lifecycle. So implement processes, and that makes sense. With this, I've looked for opportunities, and usually these have been the result of developer questions. One of the first ones that came to me was asking about third-party vendors and how they should handle this. We've had issues in the past, or before I got there, they had switched to a vendor, and they didn't tell the security team about it. So the security team's going, what? You know, you know, we've got to have certain legal documents in place, depending on the field that you're in. So we built a process around a checklist that said, this will get you a no immediately. This will say, you know, from the compliance team, this will nix them. So that actually helps them in deciding between like 3 different vendors. If one's just absolute crap with security, then they have an easier choice to make. And then, you know, we established timelines for getting the review done and everything. The other thing I had, and this was because within the first 3 months we had our first security finding that needed to be addressed, and this was before I'd done any scans. We needed a process for getting tickets in to be worked on by the development team. So we stood up a security finding tickets process that was approved by the developer team, security, and would start getting things like that worked and prioritized properly within the development lifecycle. So then training again. So I want to talk about training again because, again, I feel it's very important, and I kind of advanced my training ideas, and I brought bacon and swag to my training. That is 144 pieces of bacon. That is 2 72 packs of pre-cooked packaged bacon from Sam's. Stood 10 to 15 minutes in front of the microwave cooking all this, dropped it in the conference room, and the look on the developers' faces when they walked in for training was priceless. Is that bacon? Worth it, worth it. You know, and that also allowed me to segue into piggybacking and why that's bad. And we also spent like several minutes watching, if you go on YouTube and look for man traps, kind of showing them if we don't reel in the piggyback, and this is where we got to go. The man trap, there's a video of a guy who has a server on a cart that he's trying to get through the man trap. He's got like 3 forms of authentication he's got to do, and he's just failing miserably. Every time he gets to the door, it's like it just stops. So we spent several minutes doing that, and kind of the point of that is to make it interesting. It doesn't have to be death by PowerPoint slide. We have a little bit fun. And we're going to kind of walk through here kind of some of the other content that I have in there. One of the other things I like to bring to training is swag. So if you can get some company-sponsored swag, I would recommend doing that. It's something as simple as a stress ball they love. I don't know why. But they love that. Pens. We actually have koozies that we hand out. The koozies aren't as popular. I mean, who uses a koozie anymore? But I hand out swag and highlight security wins. And the security wins can be anything from a security tool that they're using to an issue they found in code and just went ahead and addressed. Something as simple as using a YubiKey. And I'm doing that because I'm gonna highlight the wins so that I can get a better response when we start talking about flaws, internal issues, processes, and lessons learned from an incident. Again, we're having hard conversations with them, so I wanna tell them that they're doing a good job before I break their heart. So, you know, gotta make it interesting, and also, you know, they're getting beat on a lot by security, but also business and other areas. They have tight deadlines, so we don't need to necessarily be piling on, but we do have to have these conversations. The other thing I like to talk about is relevant news. So who heard about the MongoDB and ransomware earlier this year? Yeah, I see several hands here. Y'all can grab a poster if you don't have one. I had a room full of developers who no one raised their hand. So we had a great discussion about MongoDB, default configuration, and how that's bad, ransomware, and you know, I also was like, all right, well, I'll just pull up Shodan. I'll show you how people are finding this stuff. And if you pull up Shodan, you can see a lot of, and just put a MongoDB, you'll see a lot of those hacked databases in there. So it kind of opened their eyes to some of the stuff going on the outside and why it's bad to just spin up technology and just leave it there and start throwing data in it. And then also, strategy of the attacker. So MongoDB, they've moved on to Elasticsearch and CouchDB. They're looking for anything that they can go hit. And it really highlighted why security is important. So congratulations, achievement unlocked. An AppSec program has stood up. It's not really all that complicated. It feels like it should. I know there are some frameworks out there like BSIM and SAM that can help with kind of gauging security with a program. But just getting something up, I think, is just those basics there will really help, and you'll start really seeing an impact within the SDLC. As I mentioned, there's also feedback and review and improvements. Maybe a future talk on that. We'll kind of see. But if you're looking for other things to do, improve your programming skills. If you have a programming background and you're looking to get in application security and building an AppSec program, you got a pretty good advantage there. But that's not to say that people that can't accomplish that. You just have to work a little bit harder. I spent a lot of time on Code Academy. It's probably one of my favorite ones because it has a terminal. I go coding and I can't move on until I've actually coded it correctly to get to the next step. W3 School is a good reference point, and it's got a ton of stuff on every language. I still use that to this day to try and understand different things. Pluralsight has a bunch of great courses up there. They have training courses anywhere from an hour to like 9 hours worth of stuff, and I've used that to really learn some technology, particularly in the DevOps space. And a lot of people will actually walk you through and have some kind of environment that you can go set up and start using these tools for. Code Combat and Code Fights are two more fun ones. Code Combat is more like an RPG type thing that will teach you code. Code Fights is something I've more recently heard about, and our development team set up their own team for, and it's just got a bunch of challenges. And those really help with understanding programming a little bit better. Code.org, I went and signed my daughter up with an account just so I could learn how to code. I could have just set up my own, but it was a good father-daughter moment. Within the application security field, you want to improve your skills there, and there's a lot of great resources out there. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The SANS 542 Web Application Penetration Testing and Ethical Hacking course is the course that really made things click for me from an application security perspective. It is not cheap, so I had my organization pay for it. I didn't pay for that out of pocket. But if you can, Tim Tomes does the Practical Web Application Penetration Testing course. He does it usually in the Southeast if you're an organization that wants to have, because his training is focused on developers. If you want to have him come in and do training with your developers, he will do that. He spends 2 days breaking the application and then 2 days actually fixing it. So it's not just all about breaking stuff, it's also about how to fix it. I know he did DerbyCon. I believe it's sold out. You can certainly get on the waiting list if you're interested in doing that. DerbyCon training goes about $1,200, so much cheaper than SANS. And he also hits up a lot of local user groups like OWASP and different things throughout the Southeast. I think he even went up to Boston. So you just check out his website. Then there's also Bill Semp, who does a lot with mobile, if you're in a mobile shop. You got the DevelopSec podcast by James Jardine, which is actually focused at developers. Brute Logic does a lot with cross-site scripting. And then you've got this great book, which is the Web Application Hacker's Handbook by Defad Studert and Marcus Pinto. This is considered the Bible of application security. This is 800 pages. It's got a lot of screenshots of Burp. So Defad is the creator of Burp. So if you're looking to learn more about Burp, this is a good book to go through. It's also a great reference point for different vulnerabilities that you're trying to test for. It's a really thorough book and really beneficial. So final thought time. My role, as I was going through it, I was hired as what they called a liaison. So I am not only bringing the security concerns to the development team, but I am taking the development concerns to the security team. Again, if they're running into issues, they are savvy enough to go around and find a way to do something if they're not getting what they need. I recently got some feedback from developers. I asked them, I was curious, I was like, what's your biggest pain point for security? And I was happy to find out it wasn't security, it was actually like infrastructure. There was actually nothing I could do. You know, we also had a meeting yesterday, like a team meeting, and the VP introduced me as a guest, and then the director of engineering said, no, he's part of the team. And that kind of shows you building relationships and all that, and being accepted as part of the team is going to help me make more of an impact from a security perspective. Because it makes things, there are times when I ask them for something and they drop what they're doing and they help me out. And I can't tell you how beneficial that is to me in getting security improved within our process. If you can sit with the developers, I've had a lot of fun sitting with the developers. The first week, I got a lot of stink eye and a lot of people like hesitant, like, you know, what's he doing here? You know, what, is he going to come in and tell my code sucks? That's not, part of my interview process, that's also someone they were looking for. They weren't looking for someone that's going to come in and start saying their code sucks. You want to piss off developers or lose them or have them not do anything for you, just come in and start saying how much their code sucks or what they're doing sucks. It's a good way for them to easily tune you out. So, you know, my final point is that my motto is I am there to put the developers in a position to succeed. If I'm not doing that, I'm not doing security very well. So I have to take their concerns into consideration when we're doing various different things. So as the meme says here, I'm a people person. I have people skills. Damn it, what's wrong with you people? So we have a mug here to give away. Can anyone tell me who this character is? I know, people can tell you what the movie it is, yeah. I had to go look it up. It is not Milton. I will take a first name if anyone has one. Anyone up top there? Bill. Bill? No. Anyone? Well, I'll keep it. Jeez. Well, why are people looking up on their phones? Aren't you guys hackers? Oh, when is it? Gone? Dawn, no. It starts with a T. Tom, there it is. It's Tom Simkowski. So I'll give you that for you, Lauren. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I have a podcast, Exploring Information Security. If anyone's interested, I have a different security professional on each week. I'm on Twitter at Timothy DeBlock, my email, my website. If you're in the market for an InfoSec engineer role, come talk to me after the fact. Our company is hiring. Questions? Junior pen tester and network engineer. So, yeah. Any questions? Yes, sir. Testing what? Vendor applications? Yeah, so like open source stuff, like, I mean, yeah, so the open source stuff I'll throw through like our static analyzer and stuff like that. If we can get the code from a third party, it all kind of depends. We've got a compliance team, our governance risk and compliance team, that they do a lot of the vetting, and it's a lot more like legal documentation, like if, you know, they want certain things signed in the event of, you know, whatever. Every once in a while, I will be asked to go spin up a dynamic analyzer and test an application for something we're using internal. We also have our own senior pen tester, so he goes and does most of that stuff. Did I answer your question? Yeah.
What about stuff like, you know, I'm going to go test the vSphere console, right? Are you doing that kind of thing?
vSphere and console?
For VMware, and you know, the web apps, the web front ends to like infrastructure, or the HTTP front end to a Cisco router, or
like internal?
well, yeah. Like, I mean, you know, you buy a server from some company that does a thing, it's got a web front end. Do you guys test that thing?
Yes, so, and I forgot to mention, the other question, if this is being recorded, the other question was, do I go, and this kind of along the same lines, do we test vendors, do we test vendor applications within our environment? And yes, we do. I mean, like I said, we have a senior pen tester.
How does that go? What do they do when you report something?
So I've been on a couple calls where we've had to report that kind of stuff. First, you got to get a call set up with them, which can be difficult, and it's kind of up to them to address the vulnerabilities. I mean, it's I'm trying to think how I can explain it because it seems obvious to me. But I mean, we go through and test, and if we find something that's we found some nasty stuff, and it's like, hey, here's your report, and we let them know about it, and then we'll set up a call, and they'll be like, well, we're gonna fix this, or we're not gonna fix that, or.
So they have fixed things.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How many CVEs have you opened?
I haven't opened any CVEs. I'm not at that level. So, and yeah, I haven't done that.
Now, how do you address legacy? I'm talking about like 10-year-old.
Okay, that's a good question. The question was, how do you address legacy? Well, I try to go back and touch stuff as it becomes presence of mind. A lot of times, developers will go through and test the application, like they're going back to rework it or add a new feature or something. At that point, I'll try to touch it at the same time as them. Sometimes it's also a matter of, well, this is going away. And if there's like a timer for that to go away, that's very low on the priority list. Now I've had scenarios where that got reversed. This is going away. Oh wait, no, it's not. We're sticking around for a little bit longer. Yeah. Yeah.
5 years later, I thought you said it was going away. No,
Right.
it's still there.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely tough. It also depends on how much work you have to do. So I've had plenty of work, even in my sole role, just on what they're currently doing and getting things spun up. But as I find time, I try to do it with them, because what I want to avoid is going and finding something that they aren't working on, and then bringing a bunch of more work to them, and they're already a bunch of under duress with their timelines as well. So it's trying to touch kind of what they're doing at the same time. Any other questions? All right. Yes.
Do you ever have a timeline where the timeline is so short that you can't get testing in time before deployment?
I mean, within Agile, so Agile, I didn't mention that, it's like anywhere from a day to like 2 weeks. So it's very quick cycles. So I have to, in those scenarios, I'm trying to embed as much in the process as possible. And if something gets to production, I mean, that's sometimes just going to happen. Ideally you're in the design, you're in QA, helping working with them, you're in code review, and then you've got some automated tools in place. So that kind of limits how much of that stuff makes it to production. Trying to think of a scenario where I've actually had that. I haven't. Anything, and they also know too to flag stuff that might be, like a field box or a login page or something. At that point, it's like, well, we need to engage Tim on this, and make sure we're getting everything tested. And at that point, I'll try to do it like in the QA in the earlier stage. I'll do my testing at the earlier stages. So, any other questions? All right, thank you.